Hello and welcome to Relatively Crafty, a knitting podcast. I'm your host, Christy. I come to you on a very chilly Tuesday morning in the Denver area of Colorado, where I live with my husband, Ron, and our two children, Tatum, who turns 13 in like 3 weeks, and Delaney, who is 9. Tatum is very excited about her 13th birthday. She has been wanting to be a teenager for the past 8 years, and now it is finally coming, and she's super excited about it. It's actually a milestone birthday for both my kids this year. Delaney's birthday is in December, and she will be 10. So we got teenagehood and double digits for both my kids. And as you may be thinking, having one child's birthday right after Thanksgiving and one child's birthday right after Christmas, this time of year is very expensive in my household. Anyway, you can find me on Ravelry as Cristi-Lael and on Instagram as Cristi-Lael without the dash. I provide those spellings down below as usual, and also along with the spellings I provide links to pretty much every pattern or podcast or website that I refer to in this podcast. I think every once in a while I miss one or two, but I try to catch them all, and I do them the day after the podcast goes live. So if you guys are watching this tonight on Tuesday, I will be posting those links sometime tomorrow, Wednesday. We also have a Relatively Crafty Podcast group on Ravelry where we have chatting about all kinds of things, including knit-alongs and giveaways. We are currently having our Autumn Accoutrements KAL, which is going until December 22nd, which is the beginning or the end of autumn and the beginning of winter. And in the KAL, you're just supposed to knit accessories. So anything that you can wear on your body that isn't a sweater or socks counts as an accessory. And of course blankets don't count either, because I don't know anybody who accessorizes with a blanket. Although I guess there are some people. If you live in a really cold environment, I could see you accessorizing with a blanket. But they're still not, they don't count. So anyway, go ahead and post your items in the FO thread, and also post a picture in the chatter thread so that people can ooh and ah over them, especially if you're very excited about them. If your item is up to 399 yards, I almost said degrees, that would be really hot, then go ahead and post one FO post. If it is 400 yards or above, then post 2 FO posts so that you can get 2 entries in for the prizes. And yeah, I think that's about all that I need to do for administrative stuff. So let's go ahead and get into FOs. I have 2 FOs to show you today, and one of them is going to kind of go along with a review. So I'm going to go with the basic FO first, and that is Ron socks. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw these already. I finished them a couple of days ago. Ron is chomping at the bit to be able to wear them, especially on a day like today. I think it's supposed to be a high of 35 or 38, and so warm wool socks would be perfect. But I told him he couldn't wear them until I showed them on the podcast. Anyway, I knit these out of Regia Perfect in the cinnamon colorway. And if you're not familiar with Perfect, it is a single ball that has some yellow waste yarn that separates between the 2 socks. And so you start, and they're meant to be top-down socks. You start where the yellow stops, and you knit ribbing until the color changes, and then you knit the leg until the stripes end, then do a heel, and the foot is all one solid color, obviously. I had plenty to knit Ron's socks. He wears a 10.5 men's size shoe, so that's a decent size, pretty average size for men. I think that you would probably get away with a couple of sizes up, even maybe a size 13 would be a problem. You might need a contrasting color for a toe for a 13, but and above, but I can't say that for sure. I do know that I had plenty of leftover of the brown for both socks, so that wasn't a problem. So I knit the first sock, as I said, and then when I finished, I took out everything. I took out the leftover of the brown, and then there was a bunch of yellow waste yarn to signify the difference between the first and the second sock, and then I cast on the second sock and did it basically exactly the same way. I will say that there was entirely too much waste yarn. I don't know if they needed to do that for the dyeing process, but there was maybe up to 5 grams, like 3 to 5 grams, grams of yellow yarn at the beginning, and then in between the first and second sock. And I didn't think that it really needed to be that much. You know, give me a yard or so, maybe, and that would have been fine, but you know, that's the way it goes. I didn't opt to keep any of the leftover yarn. I often do. I keep the leftovers and I use them for heels and toes, or I use them for other small projects. Very often I can make a pair of fingerless gloves out of what I have left over from a pair of socks. Or, you know, I need to make a real quick present for one of my kids' teachers or something like that, and I need a small amount of yarn, and those are perfect for that. However, I am not a fan of how this yarn feels. It's a 75-25 merino blend. They will be very hardy, heavy-duty socks. They'll last probably for ages, but they're kind of rough. It's not soft yarn in any way, and so I just didn't have much interest in saving it, even for heels and toes. It's just not something I'm really keen on knitting with all that often. But for Ron socks, it works out, and he's excited about them. So I have one more skein of this Perfect in my stash that I will use for socks for Ron as well, and then I don't know if I will purchase it again. It's a good price. I think I got it for like $18, $19, so you can make a pair of socks for cheaper than, you know, indie dyed yarn, but yeah, it's not really soft. So you just have to, you know, go in knowing that. However, you know, workhorse yarns, they'll last for ages and ages and ages. So if you have somebody in your family or somebody that you like to knit socks for that is really hard on socks, this wouldn't be a bad option for them. And then my second and last FO is something that I whipped up real quick this week because I was contacted and asked to do a review on a yarn, and I was keen to do that. I love trying out new yarns, and I like being able to, you know, check them out and see what they're really, are like in real life. You know, you can see a lot of things online, even in podcasts, but you don't really get a good feel for what they really are until you hold them in your hand. And even after holding them in your hand, it's not a true experience of the yarn until you've actually knit with it. So I was contacted and asked if I would review the yarn if they sent me a skein, and it was free of charge, so it's my review in exchange for the skein, and I was happy to do that. Now my review will be completely honest. In any reviews that I do, I'm going to be completely honest whether I bought the yarn or didn't buy the yarn. And the company was very great, and the company was very generous and offered to send a skein for me to use as a giveaway. So I have that for you guys as well. And let me talk about the yarn. This is Shepherd's Lamb. And it's really pretty awesome. If you are conscientious of where your yarn comes from and how the animals that it comes from are cared for, then you would definitely be interested in Shepherd's Lamb. This is fully organic wool. It comes from a a single farm, a ranch, I guess I should say, a ranch in New Mexico that is run by the Manzanares family. And they are the only producers of organic wool in all of New Mexico. And also they're one of the few ranchers who actually, grazes their flock naturally. So they don't feed them, grain, corn, and whatnot in, troughs. They like back in the old days, they transport the flock, or I guess that's what you call them, the flock, to the proper areas so that they can graze like they were made to do, I guess. So they move them from the low country to the mountains and back and forth as the seasons demand, and they care for these animals in a very organic way. They don't give them antibiotics. They don't plump them up with hormones. They do shear them, obviously, and then use their wool for yarn. They have both Navajo Churros and Rambouillet breeds of sheep, and I believe that this is a Rambouillet, and yeah, it's very, very organic and very natural, kind of like the way sheep were meant to be raised and used. And it's a working ranch, so they are also used for their meat, but they along with the meat, they also reap their wool. And so anyway, I was very interested in this. I haven't had a lot of experience with, organic yarns. I do tend to kind of like the soft stuff. This is not super soft. This is rustic wool. And in that, it would be good for color work. It would be good for anything that you need to steek, because it sticks to itself. It's grabby. It's toothy. But it wasn't unpleasant to knit with. This is a 2-ply DK, and you get 180 yards. I think it is. What's 2 ounces, which is like 60 grams. I think I weighed it. I don't think I weighed it. I weighed it beforehand, and it was just slightly over 60 grams. And I did that because I wanted to make a pair of mittens for Ron, and I needed to make sure that I didn't use more than half for the first mitten. And like I said, it wasn't unpleasant to work with. While it is a rustic yarn and isn't next to the skin soft, it didn't hurt my hands to work with it. It wasn't splitty. It's only a 2-ply, so it's not tightly spun, but it isn't super loosely spun either. I didn't find much issue with splitting it. I did split once or twice when I wasn't paying close enough attention to what I was knitting. But it worked really well for the mittens that I knit. I'll show you those in just a second. This is the skein that they sent me for giveaway, so I will go ahead and open up a thread either today or tomorrow. And all you need to do in the thread is just kind of let me know what you would be interested to knit with this yarn. Any pattern that you're planning on, or that you would think to knit with it. You also, of course, have to be a member of the group on Ravelry and a subscriber to the podcast on YouTube. There is not a colorway listed on the ball band, but they do have a color card on their website, and I will, of course, link that to this. It's under the heading hand-dyed Rambouillet yarn, and I believe that this is Stormy Blue. It is kind of bluish green, kind of ocean colored, I would say, and it is not completely solid. It is a bit of a tonal, but I think it worked out well with the gloves. So anyway, this will be open for the next 2 weeks or so, and then I will do a drawing with a random number generator. But let me show you what I made with them. These are a little bit big, because I made them for Ron's hands and not for Christy's hands, and Ron's hands are bigger. but I made some mittens. See, you can see a little bit of the tonality of the color, but I think I like it. I like that slight variation in the colors. So I basically, I didn't follow a pattern. I just knit these out of my brain. I cast on 40 stitches with a size 6 needle, I believe, and I did the magic loop. I did like 10 rows of 1x1 ribbing, 10 rows of stockinette, and then started the thumb gusset. I did a basic thumb gusset like I normally do, and then continued on until I hit the end of Ron's pointer finger, and then started doing decreases on either side, just like I would do the toe of a sock on a top-down sock, and that was it. And then I did the thumb until it was long enough, and then bound that off as well. So easy peasy pattern, not much to it. If you are looking for a simple mitten pattern, I think that Tin Can Knits put out one. I think it's just called like the Simplest Mittens or something like that, and she's got it so that you can do any size, so kids all the way up to adults, and then any weight of yarn as well, from fingering to bulky. I think it was like fingering, DK, worsted, and bulky. So that was pretty cool. I did look at that after I had already gotten the first mitten finished, so it would have probably been cool to be able to use the pattern. However, they work out fine. They're too big at the like the ends are too long for my little fingers. So anyway, I had plenty of yarn left. I had plenty of yarn to make the mittens. I even had yarn left over. Not a massive amount, but some. And I will actually, I will include this in with whoever wins the skein. So you have just a little bit extra yardage as well. And yeah, they're while I said this yarn isn't super duper soft, these mittens do not feel extra special rough. They're fine. I don't feel the need to like soak them in unicorn wash or anything like that. They're fine. And now Ron has some nice warm mittens to wear while winter is coming. I made him some fingerless gloves last winter that he needed for driving and whatnot, to keep his hands warm until his truck heater warms up, but still allows him to grip onto the steering wheel. These will be great for when we're going for walks and stuff like that. I wouldn't suggest that he use them for driving because they could be slippery. Although I suppose you could probably put some, I don't know, hot glue or something. Those anti-slip grippies that people put on the bottom of their socks. And then you could use them for driving. But I doubt that we'll end up doing that. He's just going to use them for, those times when he doesn't need his hands, but it's cold. And they knit up really fast. He was actually really surprised. He's like, I can't believe you made those so fast. But, DK weight on a size 6, basic stockinette, 40 stitches. Come on. It wasn't going to take very long. So that is all that I have for FOs. I don't even have a whole lot for whips either. Sorry, I don't have a lot to show you guys today. Speaking of mittens, I made absolutely no progress whatsoever on my pumpkin spice mittens that were designed by Skein Deer Knits. I need to just sit down and work on them. They're definitely something that I need to do while I'm listening to an audiobook and not while I'm watching a show. However, I got stuck working on other stockinette items. Ron's mittens got knit over the weekend, and then I've been knitting on my sweater, so that kind of thing. So that's basically what I've been doing, and the colorwork mittens have kind of just been languishing, but I am hoping to get to them a little bit this week. we'll see how long it takes me to finish them. Yesterday was the first day of my last class for school. Yay! So I have 8 weeks left, and then I'm officially done. Well, sort of unofficially done. I still have to take some CLEP tests. I don't know if you're familiar with CLEP tests, but you can take a CLEP test, and if you pass it, you basically say, I already know all the things that I would learn in this class, so they'll give you the credit for the class if you can pass the test. And there are a few classes, just a couple, that I could CLEP out of, and I've kind of opted to put them at the end here. So so while I will be done with classes, I still do have to pass these CLEP tests. I'm not too worried about it. I know a lot of people who have taken CLEP tests, and they say that they're not very hard, and the options that I have, I shouldn't have too much problem with, like American history or biology, stuff that I can study for fairly easily. And the one nice thing about having gone through life for 40 years, I've picked up a lot of information on my own. And so I do already know a lot of this stuff that I probably wouldn't have known when I was 18 if I had tried to do this. So so anyway, but I have 8 weeks left of this class that I started yesterday, and then I will be done with classes, and I'm very, very excited about it. I am trying really hard not to get, well, when I was in high school they called it senioritis, where you get to the end and you just don't want to do any work anymore. This last class is kind of a doozy, and so I really need to not get senioritis, especially because there's a lot of, they call them CLCs, Collaborative Learning, something that starts with C, and it's basically group projects, and so so it's not only my grade that I have to deal with, it's also my team's grade, and so even if I wasn't the type of person who strives for an A with every class, I would still need to do my best to make sure that my team doesn't suffer because of my actions. So anyway, I'm very excited about being almost done. I still won't finish until January because it's 8 weeks, but the end is definitely in sight. I can just almost touch it. So anyway, I have whips. That's what I was talking about before I got onto school tangent. Whips. I have one whip. Well, it's almost a hoe. This is my Desert Vista Dye Works socks. If you recall, I am doing the Woody and Buzz colorway. So this is the Buzz sock, and I gotta say, guys, I am so fully in love with this colorway. Just something about this color combination just makes me all kinds of happy. As you can see, I have it all the way done except for a heel. It's missing a heel. I have my stitch markers in where the heel is going to go, but I have not put the heel in yet because I am giving sort of an impromptu class tonight at knit night to show how I cut in a heel with the True Afterthought heel. I got a friend who I've been helping go through my sock pattern, and she is at the point to do the heel, and so we're going to do them together. And so I wanted to make sure that I had one sock ready for that, for a heel as well, so that I could kind of show her by doing as well. I like to teach that way, to kind of have mine going at the same time so they can see what I'm doing while I'm trying to teach them. That is the way that I learn the best, and so I like to teach that way as well. So there's that. This one will definitely be done by next week, and then I am also working on the Woody sock. I was working on these, concurrently, but the Buzz sock kind of got priority as I was trying to get it ready for the heel. But I am working on the Woody sock as well, and I am almost to the point of putting in the heel, or well, putting the the progress keepers for the heel. The Woody colorway is pretty as well, but I have to say that I do prefer the Buzz. But I am looking forward to wearing these together. I think they go very well together. But I would have bought a whole skein of this to make a pair of socks. I don't know that I would have bought a whole skein of this. It's not bad, as I said. It's very woody-esque, but the colors just aren't as appealing to me as the Buzz colorway is. But yeah, I should have this pair done as well. Or I should have this pair done for you guys next week. That should not be a problem. It's actually been kind of nice because I've been keen on knitting these socks. If you follow my podcast at all, you know that I've been kind of feeling pretty blasé about socks over the past 2 or so months, and this pair has been really fun to knit, and I'm keeping those in my Whimsy Stitches bag, which I love. And then the only other whip I really have to show you is my So Faded by Andrea Mowry, which is in my Kitchen Clutter orange amazing bag. I had said that I was hoping to get to the point where I was fading in the 3rd color by the time I met with you guys again, but I didn't quite make that. I did make, good progress, but it is a process, and like I said, I had to knit a whole pair of mittens since I talked to you guys last, and that took some time. So here's what I've got so far. This is So Faded by Andrea Mowry. I'm sure you've seen it before. It is a faded fingering weight stockinette pullover. And when I talked to you guys last week, I was right about here. I was just about ready to take the sleeves off. I have done that. And I have done a couple of inches in just the orange. I'm knitting this completely out of Yarn Cafe Creations. This first color is Ocean Mist. The second color is Pumpkin Carving. And I do like the way that it is knitting up. I think the colors complement each other very well. And then I've got a couple more inches to go, I think, on the pumpkin carving, and then I will fade that into Selkie, which is this one. And yeah, I won't be doing any more of the Ocean Mist on the sleeves. I got that right at the end of... right before I started the orange is when I took the sleeve, or started the orange solidly when I took the sleeves off. So, so I only need a little bit left for the collar, which is good because I don't have a whole lot left. I had hoped that I would have enough to do a pair of socks out of these leftovers, but I won't. I may be able to do like some scrappy socks with all of the leftovers, which wouldn't be entirely bad, but I think I might have to buy another skein of this Ocean Mist so that I can make a pair of socks out of them, because I really love this colorway. And then I will hold back some of the pumpkin carving to put on the sleeves as well. You have to pay attention to that kind of stuff because you want the sleeves to match the body of the sweater. So a little bit more on the body in the orange, and then I will start fading in the next color. And it's working out nicely. I think it's going to fit perfectly. It's supposed to be, well, I'm making it to be, a comfy sweater. I don't want it to be super form-fitting. So I want to be able to just, throw it on over a tank top or a t-shirt on the slightly cooler days that we have, or when I'm cold inside. And I think that it's going to fit perfectly for that. And yeah, it's easy pattern to knit, stockinette. Easy to follow. I'm enjoying it. So I should make some decent progress on that this week as well. And yeah, that is all my whips. So let's go ahead and get into yarn haul. And that I actually have a decent amount to show you. So let's go ahead and get into it. If you watch Amy at the Stranded Podcast, well, no, she's Amy Florence is her channel. Her yarn company is Stranded Dye Works, and she has a podcast. She has been working on a pair of socks with 9-inch circulars, which I tried earlier this year and absolutely hated. However, I am keen on the yarn that she's been using. It's a commercially dyed yarn that she pulled out of her stash, and I kind of like how the socks are knitting up. And I went and looked to see how much the yarn was, and it was a very reasonable price. I got it online at hotyarns.com, which I guess is like the only seller in the United States, online retailer in the United States that had it, and it was only like $7 a ball for 50-gram balls. So you needed 2 to make a pair of socks, but that's, you know, $14 for a pair of socks, and I think they have like $2, $3 shipping for all of the United States, so I couldn't pass up the deal, honestly. And since I liked the skein, I went ahead and grabbed some for myself. So this is Grundle Hot Socks Diamond with merino, Mitt merino. So it is a, let's see, it's 50 grams, 4-ply, trying to find where the 75 superwash merino and 25% polyamide. So it's, you know, a 75-25 merino blend, but it is soft. Where the Regia socks that I knit for Ron were not soft. I think that's just wool and not merino. This is much softer. And yeah, this is colorway number 5. It's a very fancy word, or fancy colorway. And it is, it knits up kind of like if the early 90s threw up on your socks. There's like neon and blues and greens and purples and pinks, and I liked it. So I will knit myself a pair of socks out of this. And because Ron has been asking for more socks, I went ahead and got some of colorway number 3 to make a pair of socks for him. And this is a little bit more manly, but still, I think, more exciting for me to knit, because it's got some bright greens, which I like a lot, but it's also got some browns and blues that Ron will appreciate. So yeah, I will make him a pair of socks out of this. And the whole thing with shipping was less than $30, which was just about $30, I guess I should say, which is about how much it cost me to get, you know, indie dyed yarn, and I get to make 2 pairs of socks out of that. I'm not in any way saying that indie dyed yarn is not worth the money. It totally is, as you can see if you just saw my my stash of sock yarn. I love indie dyed yarn, but I do also like to be able to save a little money every now and again. And speaking of awesome indie dyed yarn that I would pay an arm and a leg for because I love it so much, I got my October Rainbow of the Month yarn in this past week. This is Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, and it is beautiful. This is Knitterly Things Vesper sock. If you're not familiar, I have been in her Rainbow of the Month club this year, and it has been a great great club to be in. Knitterly Things is one of the stripy indie dyers that I know that I could always be in one of her clubs, because I always know that I'm going to love what she dyes. So so yeah, I am knitting her yarn for my box of socks for next year. I have like 15 or 16 skeins, and so I will just take 12 of them and knit them for my box of socks, and I'm excited about that because her colorways are so awesome. And then I got a bunch of DK weight yarn in this week. You all know that I have been chomping at the bit to knit the Comfort Faded Cardigan by Andrea Mowry. And it's basically like the So Faded, only it's DK, and it instead of fingering, and it's a cardigan instead of a pullover, but it still fades. And I originally was going to knit it out of a bunch of different DK weight singles that I had, single skeins, but I then I changed my mind, and then I was going to ask some indie dyers to dye some extra yarns for me, but that idea fell through because not all the indie dyers were able to fulfill that request because their colors are seasonal and whatnot. And so then I had to come up with a different idea. And so I went to the color guru, who is Carrie at the Creative Obsession. If you don't know, she is amazing with color. I think she comes by it naturally, and then also her husband apparently works with color, and so she also has his expertise that she has been, absorbing via osmosis for as long as they have been married. And so anyway, I contacted her and asked her to help me pick out some colors, and asked her if she would be willing to dye up some stuff for me, and she was so helpful with both helping with colors and dyeing up yarn. And so I now have all of the skeins that I need to make my comfort fade, and I will show them to you now. Now the first color that I'm going to do, the one that start with, here at the shoulders, it's the one that you need the least amount of yardage for. You only need a single skein, and so I am using Madeline Tosh Long Rider DK in the brass colorway, which is a tonal yellow with some like mustard and brown speckles. And I am going to fade this into Come Together, which is Carrie's yarn in her Plump DK base. I needed 2 skeins for this, and if you look right here, that is a very good match to the speckles that I have in the brass. And so this will go into this. And like I said, I needed 2 skeins. And then from here, I'm using Fire in the Sky, which is one of Carrie's newer colorways that I absolutely fell in love with, but was trying to keep myself from purchasing a bunch of sock yarn that I don't really need, because I have, 100 skeins of sock yarn and a shelf above my head. However, this is DK weight yarn, and now I do need it because I need it for the sweater. So I am going from the Come Together right into Fire in the Sky, and I think that is going to be a very nice transition as well. So brass, Come Together, Fire in the Sky, and I needed 3 skeins for this, so I have 3 skeins of Fire in the Sky. And Carrie, it is even more beautiful in real life than it is on the screen. And then after Fire in the Sky, I am going into this skein of Swoonish in the Walker DK base, which is her DK base, and the colorway is Lisa Frank Bender. So this is the final fade. So Come Together, Fire in the Sky. Can I hold all these at once? And brass. This is my fade, and I'm super excited. So as soon as I finish my So Faded, I will get into that. And I needed 2 skeins. I forgot to mention this. I needed 2 skeins of the Walker DK, and so I was able to find another on her shop. And they actually, for being dyed, a year apart from each other, they really match very well. So yeah. So now I have all the yarns that I need for my fade. I will be winding that soon, and I'm excited to start that. So it makes me want to really get through my So Faded quickly, because I just know that I am going to be using that cardigan a lot this winter. The So Faded pullover is going to be great, but it's starting to get to be too cold for me to use it, except for maybe around the house. But the DK cardigan should do me very well for the rest of fall and winter. And yeah, I think that is all of the yarn that I got in. So, that is the end of the knitting portion of this podcast. If you're just here for the knitting, then I will see you guys next week. Getting into some real life stuff. I got a new phone. This week. I I have the hearing aids, and the first set of hearing aids that I got were set up to work with an Android phone. However, the sound quality wasn't very good for the hearing aids. It was nice to be able to take phone calls directly into the hearing aid on my Android phone, but the hearing quality was really tinny, and so my audiologist had me try a different brand of hearing aids, and I like the sound quality of that a lot better. However, they don't work with Android. Apparently that first brand that I tried is the only one that works with an Android phone. A lot of the reason is because there are several different companies that make Android phones, and they don't all make them the same, and so it is hard to find, hard to make it so that these can all work with all of the phones, or all of the hearing aids rather, or the hearing aids can work with all of the phones. Does that make sense? Anyway, Apple being made, iPhones being made by Apple only, they're all the same. They're all made the same, all by the same company, and so it is easier for hearing aid companies to make their hearing aids work well with the iPhone. Now, not all hearing aids are Bluetooth compatible. You have to get, it's like each hearing company has like one line of aids that works, that is Bluetooth compatible. I have the Widex hearing aids, that's Widex, and it's the Beyond brand, or the Beyond line, I guess. The Widex is the brand that is Bluetooth compatible, but it is not compatible with an Android phone, as I said. Now, to get around that, I can wear a transmitter around my neck. It looks like, kind of looks like a necklace with like a rectangular piece almost about the size of a lighter, of a cigarette lighter, and it sits right here, and it transmits kind of like a cone up. So while I'm wearing it, it transmits to my hearing aids, and so I can connect that to my phone, my Android phone, and then listen to audiobooks and have calls go straight into my hearing aids. They go straight into my ears. So it's not speakered, it's just right into my ears. The problem is that I always have to wear that transmitter. And because it transmits kind of in a cone, if the transmitter moves around, I lose it. I can't take it off because it no longer will transmit to my hearing aids. And it messes up the sound if I'm wearing it while fiddling with my phone instead of listening to something. So that wasn't all that great. It was an acceptable compromise, but I made the decision to go ahead. We were due to redo our phones, or upgrade our phones anyway, and since I was going to do that anyway, I might as well. I made the decision to go ahead and get an iPhone. So I got the iPhone 8 Plus, the iPhone 8 Plus. So I got the iPhone 8 Plus. It's the same size as my old phone. I had the Samsung Galaxy Note 5. It's about the same size. So I didn't lose any phone size. But everything is different. And I'm trying to get used to it. One of the several things, I can still get Facebook, I can still get Instagram, I can still get YouTube all on my phone. Those are, go throughout all of the different, Android or Apple, gosh. But there are a couple of apps that don't transfer. One of them is my book catalog app that I had on my old phone. That is only available with Android phones. So I lost the catalog of all 970 books that I have. And that was kind of annoying because now I have to recatalog all my books. I have too many, and I go book shopping too often to not have a catalog, not have that at my fingertips. I need to know which books of which series I have, because I look at a lot of books. I borrow books from the library a lot. I need to know if is this a book I've already bought? Did I buy it in paperback or hardback? Which cover do I have? Is it one that I just looked at before but I never actually purchased? Is it one that I borrowed from the library and read but didn't own and now I do want to own it? You know, I need that with me. And so I have gotten a different app. It's I think it's just called iBooks through, or it's called Books through Sorted apps. Anyway, it's a nice app, and I can just scan the books through their barcode, which is what I did with the other one. The downfall is that apparently they can be edited by users, because I found that I don't know if they can be edited when they're in my catalog, but I think the ISBN numbers can be edited before I put them in. Is what I'm noticing is often enough I will scan a book and it has some other book's cover or a different author or a bunch of authors that don't actually have to do with, you know, that they didn't write the book, you know, and so I have to go through and kind of fix those. I was doing like batch edits or batch uploads where I would scan 30 books at a time. I'm like, this will go fast, good. But then I started noticing that there were so many of them that were wrong, and so I had to go through and fix all of them. So now I'm doing them one at a time, but I'm getting there. It's a process, and one thing that's kind of annoying about it is that I can't listen to my audiobook while I'm doing it. Like the audiobook won't keep playing because there's, every time that the barcode scans, it stops the audiobook. And that's not a problem that I had with an Android phone, but it's only going to be an issue while I am, you know, having to load in so many books. I'm almost halfway. I think I have like 450 books in. Like I said, I have like 970 books to do. So, so I'm getting there. But it's, you know, it's a process. But once it's all done, it'll be fine. And I am liking the app. Once the books are in and everything, it's a slightly more user friendly than the other one that I had. Another issue that I'm kind of having with the iPhone is that having to do with my hearing aids. So it's connected via Bluetooth to my hearing aids. So whenever I get a call or listen to anything, it goes straight into my hearing aids, which is great. You know, if I'm like reading, you know, looking at Facebook and there's a video, I can play it and nobody else can hear it but me. I can, of course, turn that off manually if I want to have somebody else be able to hear what is playing through my phone. But it is nice to have it just, I don't ever have to worry about being in public and all of a sudden having my phone go off. Plus, it's really nice when I'm in public and my phone is ringing because it rings right into my hearing aids. So I can hear it even if my phone is in my bag or in my back pocket, which is something that I did struggle with the Android phone, is that sometimes I would just miss it if it was ringing, or I had to find the most loud and obnoxious ringer that I could on my phone for all of my notifications so that I could hear it, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. But the one downfall is that my car also connects via Bluetooth to my phone, and it's one of those things that does it automatically. Whenever I get into the car, it connects to my phone, and so I can listen to stuff through my stereo and take phone calls through my stereo. But they keep fighting, and so apparently I'm going to have to, every time I get into the car, I have to turn off the connection to my hearing aids so that it will play through my stereo. That's kind of annoying. I wish that I didn't have to worry about that. What I have always had with other Bluetooth devices, like with the transmitter that I was wearing around my neck, or before I had my hearing aids, I wore Bluetooth headphones, wireless headphones. My car always took priority. So whenever I turned on my car, then the connection that I had with the Bluetooth headphones or with the transmitter just cut off. And so it would just automatically go through my car stereo. Apparently with iPhone, it won't give the priority to my car. Just kind of a bummer. So I have to deal with that. Maybe one day they will come up with a better way to deal with that. Beggars can't be choosers. I am very fortunate that I do have what I do have with my phone. You know, as I said, my mom went all of my life without really being able to talk on the phone because she could never hear, and there wasn't that option to have the Bluetooth connection. So anyway, yeah, so I have a new phone and I'm learning how to use it. and I have no experience with Apple products. I didn't buy any Apple products in my entire life because I knew that Apple is a cult. And once you buy one, you're going to buy them all. And I have to say, I was in the Verizon store talking with the clerk, and Ron and I are talking about, getting the iPhone for me, and then he's showing us his iWatch, or Apple Watch, or whatever they call it, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. And so, yeah, maybe after I get a job, I might have an Apple Watch. But, anyway, so let me go ahead and talk about books just a little bit. One book that I had mentioned that I was going to be reading, I went ahead and started, and that is Horns by Joe Hill. I was listening to this on audio. I got maybe 60-65% of the way through the book, and I had to stop reading it. It's not a bad book. It's written well, and he's a talented writer, but I have issues with empathy sometimes, and I get too emotionally invested in certain stories, and they affect my emotional well-being sometimes, which can be good if I'm reading, a really happy story or a really romantic story. Then I just get all happy, warm, fuzzy, lovey feelings. But with books like this, I start to really feel poorly, and so I didn't like the way this was affecting me. I didn't like the way I was feeling, and it just wasn't getting any better. Like, I tried to, make it through and just make it to the end, and things were just getting worse. And so I went ahead and DNF'd this, and I'm going to go ahead and unhaul the book. As I said, it was well written. If you are a fan of Joe Hill, then I would recommend it. If you're a fan of maybe even Chuck Palahniuk, then I could recommend Joe Hill. They kind of reminded me a little bit of each other. Chuck Palahniuk is another one that I have to kind of be careful about because his stories affect me the same way. But yeah, I just couldn't. It just wasn't. It was making me feel icky. So there's that. So I have kind of decided to take a break from thrillers and scary audiobooks, and I am now reading the Delirium series by Lauren Oliver. Lauren Oliver is a YA writer, and she writes kind of, I don't want to say supernatural, but it's not fantasy either. It's, I don't know, it's every kind of magical reality, maybe. And this one is a dystopian series. It includes Delirium, I think Pandemonium is the second book, and then there are some Delirium stories, and then Requiem. And it's one of her beginning series. It's been around for a while. I've never read it, though. And so I'm trying to read it. It's about a world, I think it's our world, maybe in the future, and they've determined that love is a disease, and so they found a way to immunize people from being able to fall in love because it causes them to die. Love does. And when you're 18, you get cured from the ability to fall in love. And we have our main character, Lena, who is just getting ready to be cured. Like, so she's just a couple of months out of her cure date. However, she's met a boy, and now she doesn't want to be cured. It says on the back. It's a little bit cheesy, I have to admit. I'm listening to it on double speed because it is a little bit too reminiscent of those other dystopians that have to do with, you know, two people from opposite sides of the track who fall in love and then, you know, need to fight the entire world because everybody's against their love. Divergent, or Beautiful Creatures, or there's others that I can't think of right now. So anyway, I'm gonna get through it. I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy much of it, but I'm at least gonna read that first book and see how I feel about it for the rest of the series. If I don't like the first book, I'll probably just unhaul the rest of it. I have to say that I've read, I think, everything else that Lauren Oliver has written, and I've really liked everything else. Just something about this first series. But, you know, that happens a lot with writers, you know, because writers grow as they write. And so I find if I read something from them later in their writing career that I really like, sometimes when I go back to read the earlier stuff, I'm just not as impressed with it. A good example of that is Maggie Stiefvater's Raven Cycle series, which I read first. That was her second series, and I loved it. Like, all the books got 4 and 5 stars. Then I went back and read her Wolves of Mercy Falls series, which was her first one that came out several years before, and I couldn't get past the second book. So yeah, it may just be that this earlier dystopian. Plus, I'm kind of over the whole dystopian romance, YA dystopian romance. So yeah, I may not finish that series, but I am excited about this other series that I am going to read in physical form. I'm not going to listen to them, and that is by Christopher Moore. This is A Dirty Job, and this is Secondhand Souls, and they are a duology. From what I understand, the main character is Charlie, and he's pretty normal. He's, you know, married, and they're expecting a baby, and then people start dying all around him. And I guess he's now been picked to be Death. And I always like stories like this where you have an unlikely character who has to now fill in for Death. If you're familiar with Terry Pratchett and the Discworld series, his Mort books, there's like 3 or 4 of them that have to do with Mort in the Discworld, and he is an apprentice to Death, and he's kind of just a dunderhead, and he has to fill in for Death. And so, anyway, I'm looking forward to this. I've heard Christopher Moore is very funny. I haven't read any of his books yet, but I have heard that he's hilarious, and so I'm looking forward to reading these. So those ones will be my next up to read at bedtime. And yeah, that's about all that I have to say about books today. Not as much, but being sick, man. I was all sick for a week, like a week and a half, and then got over the cold, and then last weekend something didn't agree with me that I ate, and so I kind of had tummy problems, and so yeah, I just did a lot more sleeping than I did reading. But that's okay. Sometimes that's the way it goes. So anyway, that is all that I have for you guys on this bright and cheery Tuesday. So I will talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and happy knitting.